There'll be a process through the Select Committee process for people on all sides of the debate around the Treaty Principles Bill to express their concerns. From a National Party point of view, as I've said before, we don't agree with this bill, and we don't agree with it for a number of reasons. The first thing is that treaty issues are complex, and we have built up over 184 years, you do not go negate with a single stroke of a pen 184 years of debate and discussion with a bill that I think is very simplistic. We think our approach as a National Party is a much better one, which is that we actually engage on those issues, issue by issue, case by case, and we work it through together, and that's been the history of what we have done between the Crown and Māori over 184 years. And importantly for our government, we're focused on improving outcomes for Māori, and that's where Māori want to have higher incomes, Māori want to have less crime, Māori want to make sure they have better educational opportunities, access to timely healthcare. So that's why, yes, we're supporting it to first reading, but beyond that we're not supporting it for those reasons. We've talked about it openly as a caucus. We also believe very strongly it's not something we're supporting, and we know why we're not supporting it. As I said before, treaty issues are complex, and I think it's very simplistic with a stroke of a pen to believe that you can resolve 184 years of debate discussion in the way that it's been proposed. We're just following normal process, but I mean the idea is that I want it to come as a second reading and for it to be voted down, and that's what we've agreed to do. I mean, my view is very simple, which is that we've had 184 years of grappling with the treaty and what it means for New Zealand. I think it's made us a better country through that debate and discussion. We haven't always agreed, we will not always agree as we go forward, that's normal. But you don't just, it's simplistic to actually come out and say, I'm going to write a piece of paper that actually negates 184 years of debate and discussion. I think our approach is a better way, which is that you take the issues that arise, that we have to wrestle with, that we have to grapple with, and we go through issue by issue, case by case. And then ultimately, as I said to you, this is a government that's focused and was elected to get the country back on track. That means the economy, it means law and order, it means better public services. This doesn't help us do that. We are working very positively with Māori when you think about immunisation rates for under 2. Look at the Waikato Tainui deal that we've been doing around emergency social housing. Look at the work that Tama Potaka and Chris Bishop have been leading around emergency housing that's been helping Māori families get into proper housing. So from my point of view, that's why we don't support it. We didn't support it before the election. Our position's unchanged. Yes, we support it in first reading because we're in an MMP environment in a coalition government. As any government forming coalition has to make trade-offs and accommodate their partners as well. The debate and discussion between Māori and the Crown and the obligations that we have to each other is something that we have wrestled with and grappled with in this country, as I said, for 184 years. And we have obligations under the treaty to uphold. We also have obligations to ensure that there are equal rights for all New Zealanders. And in that is some inherent tension, right? And that is what we wrestle with. Other democracies around the world have their own tensions in their democracies. Unelected House of Lords, for example. Think about a US political system where a state like Wyoming has a bigger influence than California. In our case, we are balancing our obligations with the treaty with also our obligations for equal rights. But you can't come down on one side of it and say it's all equal rights and we dismiss what our obligations are with the treaty. And you cannot come down and say we're changing the nature of the treaty and not actually acknowledging that we need to have equal rights for all New Zealanders in a modern liberal democracy. So we have a sensible approach. We have a consistent approach that we've had for many decades as a National Party, which is we take these difficult issues, issue by issue, case by case. We can have a conversation respectfully without actually having to go into demonising each other and also not necessarily agreeing with each other. They're hard issues by the time we're getting into those debates and discussions. Commentators on all sides of the debate would acknowledge that in a post-treaty settlement world, there is a genuine sort of conversation that can and should take place about what is the future role of the Waitangi Tribunal going forward. So if we look at references to the Waitangi the Treaty of Waitangi in legislation, give effect to the treaty or whatever the generic clauses are, what we know is that we need to put more specificity around what is it in the treaty that is relevant to this piece of legislation versus just throwing in a generic clause that causes huge confusion and not a lot of clarity, frankly. And so I don't think that's an example where you might be on different sides of that issue, but we're just saying, look, we want to make sure that legislation going forward is operable, everyone has maximum clarity, and therefore we want to make sure that the link to the treaty is very explicit and very specific to that particular piece of legislation. There are pieces of legislation that go through with a generic clause in it that actually has, the treaty has no relevance to some of those conversations or what that legislation is designed to do.